Deranged stepmom lost it when she learned my dad left his whole estate to me instead of the kids she dragged into the family, who always ignored him no matter how hard he tried. So she snatched my house keys and tried breaking in. But wow, even I couldn't believe what Dad had secretly arranged for her. You know, sometimes life throws you a curveball so wild, so unbelievable. It feels like it's ripped straight from a movie script. But what if the villain in your story, the woman who made your dying father's final days a living hell, not only tried to steal your inheritance, but also walked straight into a trap he perfectly laid just for her? Seriously, what would you even do if your own dad, even from beyond the grave, orchestrated the most epic comeback you could ever imagine? So, this whole wild ride started because my dad, Theo, was a pretty big deal, a movie producer. We weren't like Hollywood famous, but he was very successful in our small, oceanside country. My mom, his first love, passed away right after giving birth to me, when they were both my age, 24. My dad became a single parent, and for nearly 10 years, I was his whole world. He turned down countless women, always putting me first. He'd made a fortune early on, and when I was 12, we moved to a film-centric city. But settling in? That was rough. I got bullied hard at school. These two boys would relentlessly make fun of my clothes, which my dad picked out, until one day they pushed me down a flight of stairs. It was bad. My dad was called to the school, but his schedule was so insane he couldn't even meet the bullies or their parents. He loved me, I knew that, but his job consumed him. He made a difficult decision then. He sent me to live with my grandparents. He wanted me to have stability until I could adjust. My grandparents? They were angels. They raised me as their own, pouring so much love into me. Dad would visit on holidays, family events, but that was it for 6 years. We grew distant. How could we not? Then, when I was 15, I started noticing hushed whispers between my grandparents. Something about my dad. I confronted them, secretly hoping he was finally coming to take me back. Instead, they dropped a bombshell. He'd remarried. He'd met this woman, let's call her Lisa, on a set. They'd eloped the day before and were coming to visit us. I was crushed, honestly. It felt like abandonment. He'd started a whole new family while I was tucked away with my grandparents. But I just pouted, knowing I had no say. The moment Lisa walked into my grandparents' home, I felt it. This weird off vibe. She put on this incredibly fake show of kindness towards me. It was all for my dad's benefit, clearly. At that moment, a part of me was actually relieved I didn't live with him anymore. As we talked, she revealed she was divorced with 2 kids. Kids I might get to meet if I ever visited my dad's mansion. He did ask me if I wanted to live with him, but the hurt and abandonment were too raw. I flat out said no. They left, and my grandparents and I all agreed. Her niceness was an act. Life went on. I focused on school, driven to get into film school, specifically for camera work. The technical side of things always fascinated me. I got into the best program, but of course it was in the city where my dad and his new family lived. I was happy and independent with my grandparents, but I feared if I went to that college, I'd be reined in by my dad. When he found out I got into that college, he was ecstatic, wanted me to come home. I made it crystal clear. If I moved to the city, I wouldn't be checked up on by him or his family. He agreed, but I was still doubtful. My grandparents, though, kept insisting I go, so I eventually joined. My dad invited me to stay at his place. I initially refused, but his and Lisa's insistence wore me down. I agreed to visit. Walking into that mansion, it was like I'd never lived there. The walls were covered in pictures of Lisa, her kids, and some of my dad. He looked thin, pale. I was genuinely worried. He offered to pay my tuition and let me stay as long as I wanted. I refused. No pity funds from him. I got a student loan and moved into the college dorms. As I was leaving the mansion that afternoon, I met Lisa's kids. They were just back from acting classes. And then it hit me. The biggest shock of my life. These weren't just some kids. These are the same 2 bullies who'd pushed me down the stairs years ago. James and Jake. 24 now, just like me. My stomach dropped. I wanted to tell my dad, but honestly, I didn't even know him well enough to predict his reaction. So I called my grandparents. They told me I'd done the right thing by keeping quiet. It had been years since he'd married Lisa, and dropping that bomb now could destroy what little relationship I had with him. So, I just exchanged formal pleasantries with James and Jake and got out of there. Fast. My grandparents had filled me in on James and Jake's backstory. Their biological father was a wealthy businessman. He never wanted to leave them, but Lisa had somehow twisted things, accused him of domestic violence, and dragged them into a new marriage with my dad. My dad, who hadn't wanted more kids, agreed for Lisa. He'd known them since they were 15, and they'd never failed to remind him they weren't his. He poured everything into them, only for them to disrespect him, berate him in front of relatives. These two were a huge reason why I'd been kept away from my dad in the first place. Lisa? She never tried to smooth things over. She just didn't care, and it crushed my dad. Their marriage had always been rocky, but having me in the city, his biological daughter, finally gave my dad someone he could confide in. He'd hint about his relationship with Lisa, how she spent his money promoting her kids, a promotion he felt was fake. I stayed quiet, listened to him rant. I didn't want to interfere, but I knew, deep down, that marriage was doomed. Over the course of my studies, I'd visit him on weekends, but I never felt truly welcome at their house, so I stopped. Then, just after I started college, came the devastating news. My dad had aggressive, late-stage cancer. Only a few years left. Seeing him in such pain was hard. But what hurt more was how utterly miserable he was in his marriage. Jake had even gotten a recurring role in a sitcom because of my dad, but still, Lisa's kids never treated him like a father. I watched my dad desperately try to connect, only for them to see him as an ATM. And Lisa? She saw no problem with it. By the time my father was on his deathbed, Lisa had all but vanished. She rarely showed up at the hospital. My dad cried to me, abandoned by his wife and stepchildren. I wasn't close to him, but his raw pain, his loneliness, was unbearable. I tried talking to Lisa, asking her to be there for him. Her response was chilling. She'd rather look after her future than wait for someone to become past. She was, without a doubt, the worst human I had ever met. My dad passed away soon after I finished my course. Lisa showed up at his wake for maybe 15 minutes, mostly when the industry bigwigs were there. Her sons? They didn't even bother to show their faces. That day, I swore I'd never consider them family again. I planned to leave the state, pursue my film career elsewhere. But a week after the wake, Dad's lawyers summoned me to the mansion. When I arrived, Lisa and her kids were already there, fuming. Dad's lawyer explained his will. 70% of his assets, including the mansion, went to me. 20% to his parents, my grandparents, who were already well off. And 10%, plus a condo in the city, went to Lisa and her children. He'd also left a final message for me, apologizing for not being the father he wished he could be. I was overwhelmed, emotional. But the real shocker was for Lisa and her kids. She shot me a furious look before storming out. I asked the lawyer about the fallout. He just smiled, assuring me that whatever those three planned, it would be illegal, and I had nothing to worry about. My plans to move? Canceled. I had a home now. I called Lisa soon after, politely asking her to remove her and her kids' belongings. This wasn't their home anymore. She erupted, accusing me of being cruel, and I, with a sweet, happy smile, echoed her own words, "I'd rather look at the future than my past." She hung up. Her own medicine, bitter, wasn't it? I got a few nasty texts from her after that, but honestly, seeing her miserable after what she'd done felt right. That weekend, I visited my grandparents to tell them everything. They weren't surprised. Not really. They'd always suspected Lisa's intentions, but they were thrilled she was finally getting her comeuppance for treating their son, my dad, so terribly in his last days. After a good weekend, I drove back to the city. My mansion door was already ajar. My heart pounded. Burglary? I immediately called the cops and Dad's lawyer. He was the only one I truly knew. The cops went in first. And guess who they found? Lisa and her children. They were acting like total idiots, screaming that it was their home, that no one could kick them out. They even blamed Dad's lawyer, accusing him of creating a fake will with me. How could Theo, Lisa's dear husband, James and Jake's father, do them so dirty, leave them with nothing? The cops were ready to arrest them, but Dad's lawyer stopped them. He had a better plan, he said. I was suspicious, but I listened. I told the cops to hold off. The lawyer pulled the officers aside, whispered something, and they left. Then he invited me, Lisa, and her kids inside, asking us to wait. You want to get something? I was terrified, alone with them. But Lisa clearly didn't want to add assault to her list of crimes. So we just sat there while they kept berating me about fraud. A few minutes later, the lawyer returned, carrying a box. What he said next, no one saw it coming. My dad, it turned out, had known about Lisa's infidelity for a while, especially after he got sick and her behavior changed. He'd discussed it with his lawyer, and to protect my interests, he'd added a clause to the will. Lisa and her children's share of his estate could increase by 30%, taken from my share, if she remained faithful to him until his death. This would only happen if she consented to it. Her face lit up. She immediately said yes. The lawyer handed her the consent form. But here's the kicker. The arrangement also stated that if Lisa was found guilty of cheating, with proof, she would lose even her initial 10%. She signed anyway, confident there was no evidence against her. Once everyone understood the terms, the lawyer pulled out a USB drive and a stack of papers from the box. He handed the papers to me and played the videos on his laptop. My dad had secretly installed a CCTV camera in the living room. Not only did it catch Lisa with another man, but it recorded intimate situations, clear proof of her infidelity during their marriage. The papers? Pictures of Lisa with her lover. I know it sounds like a movie plot, but my dad was a producer. He knew how to craft a story, even in death. Lisa's face turned ghostly pale. She'd signed the papers, agreeing to get nothing. She threw an epic tantrum, screaming that it was unfair, that she should have been told about the proof. My dad's lawyer just pointed to a small camera in the corner. Even this conversation, he said calmly, where the clear rules of the will were stated, has been recorded. He told her to go pack her things at the condo she was supposed to get. James quickly grabbed his mother and they left, defeated. The lawyer warned me, expect a court case, and change the locks immediately. I listened to both. I called my grandparents, telling them about the whole dramatic saga. They decided to come stay with me for a few days to ensure my safety. Update 1 asterisk, as the lawyer predicted, Lisa and her kids tried to sue me, claiming she'd been deceived and that my dad was coerced into signing the will. Honestly, I had no idea how she planned to prove such outrageous claims. My lawyer just kept assuring me we had this. Lisa, ever the manipulator, tried to get my grandparents on her side, saying they were also getting a lesser share because it was my plan. My grandma almost fell for it, but my grandpa stood firm, loyal as ever. Her plan backfired. I even offered my grandparents the mansion if they wanted it, just to show there was no ill intent. Lisa then threatened me in a voice call, and I immediately filed for a restraining order, which I got. Her next brilliant move? Crying wolf to the film fraternity, claiming her dead husband pressured her and that I'd plotted to leave her penniless. But many people knew my dad, knew what a good man he was. They called her bluff. Some even questioned her, asking why she, a woman with a decent job, was so desperate for money. Her sympathy play completely backfired. Jake even lost the job he'd gotten because of my dad because the production company didn't want the controversy. The only bad thing was the local tabloids picking up the story, hounding me and my grandparents. Update 2 asterisk things got even crazier. I thought Lisa would back off after all that, but no. She doubled down, targeting not just me, but my friends and other family, spreading lies, trying to isolate me. Her legal team sent a letter claiming I was emotionally unfit to manage the estate, using my grief against me. She even claimed I had a history of mental health issues and wasn't capable of making rational decisions, dropping names of concerned family friends I hadn't spoken to in years. My lawyer reassured me it was a desperate attempt, but the sheer maliciousness of it shook me. She also tried to turn my dad's business partners against me, but thankfully, they knew him too well. The absolute last straw? My car was vandalized. Keyed. A nasty note left on the windshield. Karma's coming for you. I couldn't prove it was her, but it felt exactly like something she'd do. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was harassment. My lawyer and I prepared to bring up the restraining order again, along with harassment and defamation. At that point, I wasn't just defending myself legally, I was fighting for my sanity. Every time I thought she'd hit rock bottom, she found a new way to drag me into chaos. My grandpa even suggested selling the mansion and moving far away. The idea was tempting. Update 3 asterisk, but then, finally a turning point. Lisa was officially in court. And let me tell you, it did not go her way. After months of legal threats and drama, the court ruled entirely in my favor. Her claims about deception, about my dad being coerced, completely shut down. She'd spent all this time convinced she could manipulate the system, but it didn't work. The look on her face when the judge handed down the verdict, pure shock. What happened next was even more chaotic. In the courthouse hallway, there was this explosive confrontation between Lisa and her sons, Jake and James. I didn't hear everything, but they were furious with her for losing. They'd assumed they'd get a better deal, and when they realized Lisa's lies had led them to a dead end, they absolutely lost it. Jake stormed out, leaving Lisa and James. James followed soon after. They clearly weren't on speaking terms. Later that evening, I got a call from Jake. He apologized. He admitted he and his brother had been blind, manipulated by their mother for years, made to believe my dad was the bad guy. He even asked to meet up. But honestly, I want to know part of it. I'd been through too much. I thanked him for the apology, but made it clear I wasn't interested in any kind of relationship with them. They made their choices, and now they had to live with the consequences. Update 4. The final chapter asterisk, it's been a few months now, and things have finally settled. The court ruling was a massive relief. No sympathy left for Lisa, not from me, not from her sons, certainly not from the public. Her attempts to manipulate and lie for a bigger share of my dad's estate had left her with nothing but humiliation. I released a simple statement through my lawyer. The will was legitimate. The court confirmed my father's wishes, and Lisa's actions were hurtful and unnecessary. I wanted to move on. And Lisa? Her situation only got worse. Her victimhood narrative backfired spectacularly. The industry my dad helped her get into completely turned its back on her. No one wanted to work with someone so manipulative, so willing to air dirty laundry. Last I heard, Jake and James cut ties with her completely. They moved out of the condo she lost and haven't spoken to her since. They've tried getting work in the industry, but after everything, no one wants to risk it. It's sad, I guess, but I can't bring myself to feel bad. They stood by her, went along with her lies. As for my grandparents, they've been my rock through it all. After everything settled, I offered them the mansion. They were hesitant at first, but they eventually accepted. I know my dad would have loved for them to have it. It feels like the right thing, and honestly, it gives me peace of mind knowing the house is in loving hands. They're already talking about renovations, keeping the heart of the home intact. It's their space now, and I'm so happy for them. And me? I'm moving on to a new chapter. A huge project came up overseas, and I'm taking it. It's a massive career opportunity, and it couldn't have come at a better time. After everything with Lisa, I desperately needed a fresh start. A change of scenery, new challenges, a chance to focus on myself and my work away from all that toxicity. Before I leave, I'm spending as much time as I can with my grandparents, just soaking in their love and wisdom. It's wild how life turns out, isn't it? What would you have done if your father, from beyond the grave, left you a legacy of not just wealth, but also a perfectly executed trap for someone who betrayed him? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments.